May I?
No,
There's
Elizabeth.
something else that concerns people. Thank you. With kind of pickup artistry and dating coaching, you know, aside from the fact that I think you're absolutely right, Addy, that there is not the caution about, you know, potential social and legal ramifications that maybe there should be. And that is that, you know, I feel that there is a danger of that kind of movement being quite gynocentric and encouraging men to find their sense of self-worth in for the momentary approval of women.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great point, Elizabeth. I think that when people talk about PUA and dating coaches, they think of the originators that came up with the whole concept, and not even came up with the whole concept. I'm selling them short. It's evolutionary biology, it's sales, and it's evolutionary psychology. So the people that first came up with it, they were trying and testing things, and they were trying to make it into a social science. But what you're saying is that it did have this originally when it came to be. It was this thing where it was like, how many women have you slept with? How many women have you dated? Did you get this? Did you get to second base, first base? It was that thing. You get a sense of self-worth from your success with women. You're absolutely right with that. But then it did become something better than that. It was to make men better people, and even the companies that were really concentrating on self-help, they were incorporating Tony Robbins type of thinking into it and strategies into it. They even stopped doing what they were doing RSD. They basically went, well, it's just safer to just do self-help. But yeah, I agree with that. I think that there is a lot of worship of approval. There's approval seeking involved in the initial concepts of PUA that still exist in this day and age. And your self-worth does not depend on another person. Your self-worth depends on how you feel about yourself and the decisions you make in your life, and with the right things you do in your life that give you that self-confidence. It comes from you just being the person you are and going in the right direction. And if women are attracted to you because of that, then that's a byproduct of being more successful. So yeah, I understand that. It's not a complete science. It never was, but it's not what the media report it to be. The media report it to be this thing from 1998 or 2001 where people were putting on black nail polish and top hats and going to clubs. Or The Game, the book The Game. The book The Game was actually ridiculed by most people that were dating coaches from 2010 onwards, but that's what they quoted, that negging. No one taught that. No one taught these concepts that they talked about. So I understand what you're saying, but I think it's a different thing. If you go on YouTube or if you go online to check out a lot of guys that are doing it now, Black Manosphere, Red Pill guys that are doing it, it's just a whole new league of teaching and understanding of this concept. And I'm glad that the guys that are doing it now are teaching something a lot more political and modern to do with society.
Would you say that this part of the manosphere became adult and grew up, so to speak? When I look at the guys from 21 Convention, that started much more with a PUA focus, and now it's much more about self-help and just being the best possible man that you can be, self-improvement. And I think it's beautiful to see that these guys that were trying to get game in the past now talk about relationships and how to find a good wife and how to be a good father. It's kind of nice to see a movement growing up and taking responsibility for their own people.
100%. It's a massive step in the right direction. Females have always had magazines and some sort of advice given to them, even amongst themselves, whereas men have never really had that. Most men, especially the guys I taught, they always think they know everything about dating, and they always think they know everything about fighting. Most guys think they can fight and they can chat up girls. But there's something beyond that. There is, like you're saying, there's been a responsible male, there's been a father, there's been a guy that is in control of his own emotional state and is masculine and takes pride in being masculine. It's not a shameful thing to be a man. And I like the movement Anthony Johnson has with 21 Convention. I like the movement Rollo Tomasi has. I think it's great. Even guys like Owen Cook, I think from RSD, they're doing great. They're doing great work for men. Likewise with Paul Elam and Elizabeth and Mike Buchanan, I think they're doing great things for men. It is a more mature thing, but the media would have you believe, Philip, that you're a PUA, Elizabeth is condoning PUAs, Mike's a PUA, Eccentrik Hat's a PUA. That's how they branch us all together.
Addy, please don't ask me when I had sex the last time. I'm definitely a PUA. I'm as far away from being a PUA as possible.
I'm the PUA. He's
Addy, I would actually like to talk to you after the show.
Listen, it's fine. No, I get what you're saying, but I'm just saying the way they stereotype us all. We're the same sleazeball, the same creep. That is their game. It's like the whole manosphere is wrong. Don't get me wrong. There will be certain parts of the manosphere that we need to fix. That is maybe like they're in it for the money or their intentions aren't right. And there's also like even the leftist people. There's certain parts of their ideology that we can learn from. Not to say that it is 100% right, but maybe at 10%. I'm being generous here. 10%. If you have an open mind, you can be like, what are you saying? Racism is wrong. Yes, it is wrong.
Yeah,
I understand that. I get it. But racism.
To be honest, the only reason why we actually let you on the show was to get rid of our label of white supremacy. So we thought, shit, we have to bring one of these brown people.
Is Addy a minority? Because I don't see color.
Well, do you know what? It's a great thing that you touched on this, because I wanted to touch on this. Right, I think that when people talk about this type of thing, racism is wrong no matter who says what about that person's colour. So if I say something about white people in a derogatory manner, that is racist. This is common sense, and it has to go both ways. And the same thing applies to sexism. If I say something about a female that is derogatory, that's sexist. But if a female says something against a man that is derogatory, that is sexist. It has to be a two-way conversation, because if it's not, then what gives me the right to make fun of someone or think I'm better than someone or entitled to more rights than someone because of the colour of their skin, because it's lighter than my skin?
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I think it's deeply ironic whenever, because I've had this conversation many times, someone will say, oh, you can't be racist against white people, you can't be sexist against men because they have all the power and we're simply punching up. And I'm like, don't you realize that was exactly the same argument that Nazis used? That whenever we attack Jews, we're punching up. So it doesn't matter what they do to them because they did it first.
Yeah. And the thing is, I have privilege. I'm British. If I go to a country with that red passport that is a third world country, I'm treated like a king. I am treated like a king because of the colour of my skin. Not sorry, because of the passport, despite the colour of my skin. And there's people with the same colour as me treating me in a different way because I have that passport, because I have the accent I have, and I'm born where I'm born. So I am privileged. I have the privilege to have every single right that people of a lighter skin colour have in the same country. I have the
and you have the privilege now of not being white, because you can actually say certain things that a white person can't say at the moment in our society.
Exactly. And I also have the privilege to abuse that right if I wish, and make it into some sort of social justice cause that is not promoting equality or not moving our society forward in any way, shape or form.
But by the way, where is your family from? What's your background?
My roots are Pakistani.
Okay.
And do you know what I feel like? And this is not me jumping on a bandwagon when I say this. I feel like what happened to me in Scotland with the whole media scandal did have something to do with my race, but I'm not gonna put that down to I was targeted specifically for my race. There was a whole bunch of other aspects as well, but I did think that it did have something to do with that. However,
I think it's a lot more to do with your sex, to be honest.
Yeah, that was the next point I was going to make. That more so that I'm a man than that, but it did play a part. But that doesn't mean that, oh yeah, racism doesn't exist. When it comes to like movements like Black Lives Matter, the sentiment is great. Like, Black lives do matter. So do white lives, so do brown lives, so do yellow lives, whatever colour you want to talk about. But the actual actions involved in that movement seem to be very disruptive and criminal.
Well, that's certainly a problem that we have in communicating our ideas, because, like, for example, Black Lives Matter wants to have a monopoly on race issues. Feminism wants to have a monopoly on sex issues. If you disagree with them, then you're obviously a racist or a sexist. And
Yeah.
and I have great problems with that. You know, what I say to them is, just because we don't like you crying wolf doesn't mean we don't believe wolves exist.
Yeah. In regards to racism and sexism, or race and gender, when I went to Chicago last year to the International Conference on Men's Issues, a reporter from the BBC, he joined me, and he noticed that I was stopped at every airport control, and they just searched me. It was one of those random searches, and he was like, "Dude, you're being stopped everywhere." And his skin tone is definitely darker than me. He is Spanish and has very dark hair and a darker complexion. And then we went to Chicago, and in Chicago, obviously, there are a lot of Black people, and I had great conversations with some of the Black people in Chicago. And the guy from the BBC and me, we started to have a conversation about racism. And he said, well, every Black person experiences racism every day. And I said, define racism. And he had a little bit of a hard time with that. And I said, look, I was stopped at every airport because of my tattoos, and most of all because I'm a man between 20 and 50. If I was a woman with tattoos, I wouldn't have been stopped. If I had been Black, I would have assumed that people stopped me because I was Black, and I would have assumed, oh, I was stopped for being Black, but I would have been stopped for being Black and male and between 20 and 50. All these things. That's actually a point where the intersectional people are correct. There are intersectional things, but they completely leave out that men are being targeted because of their gender, because of their sex. There is racism, but there is a lot of sexism against men. And as a man, you are definitely seen as a predator from the get-go.
Yeah, I mean, within the criminal justice system, and the criminal justice system is the one place where I think the left is often right, in that we do need to reform it very much. But you know, within the criminal justice system, someone who is not white is more likely to be convicted. They are more likely to serve a longer sentence, you know.
20%, I think.
But 20%, is it? That's significant. I mean, that's a lot. But yes,
I think it was between, I think between black man and white man in America, I think it's 20%, as far as I know.
I think it's not quite as bad in the UK, but it's still there. But the difference between men and women just dwarfs it completely.
6 times as large.
60%. No, 60%. Yeah.
No. The disparity, the race gap versus the gender gap. The gender gap
is 6 times
larger. You're 6 times more likely to be convicted for being a man than for being black.
Okay. Wow. Interesting.
Yep, I agree with that. But that goes a little bit further as well. And I want to say this because I'm an ethnic minority. I can say this. We have a culture of, in music especially, of a criminal culture. So it's like a lot of ethnic minorities do commit crimes. And I'm not saying about every ethnic minority, and no disrespect to anyone, but let's be honest about what's actually going on in our communities. Our music is quite aggressive. This whole glorification of crime, glorification of being a gangster, whatever. We need to address that also. It's not just about everybody of colour is just innocent or they're absolved of any sin because of the colour of their skin. We have to look at our influences and also what is driving us, what is conditioning us to think in a certain way, what is making us act in certain ways that we are doing things that are not helping us, not helping the stereotype either. So we have to actually address those as well. And it's not just about, we're just demonized by white people, or we just seem to be in areas where we just happen to commit crimes. You have a choice. You have a choice not to act in a certain way. You have a choice to make a decision to not take that information on and be, I'm going to do whatever I want and just act in a criminal way. And
I have to challenge you on that, Addy. I have to challenge you on that because I think a lot of young men don't really have a choice because you need a way to express your masculinity. And if you don't have a father, or if there is nobody who teaches you how to express your masculinity in a masculine but productive way, for example, by martial arts or sport or in a club or something like that, you will try to express your masculinity in other ways, and that is usually a gang or some kind of negative expression of masculine power. Criminal behavior. And it's not just a race thing. When you look at white British people, they go into hooliganism, for example, or they just get drunk and wasted on the weekend and just get into fights. It's the same thing. It's unchanneled masculine energy, and we need to give them a purpose somewhere where they can say, I can be aggressive and masculine, but in a productive way. And that barely exists, and feminists try to completely eradicate that.
It's so ironic because our society was utterly dependent on masculine energy for millennia, and now in the last maybe 50 years or something, we've become terrified of it. We've regressed enormously, and we promote feminine energy, which is great, but we promote feminine energy for men. So, like for example, the UN put out a tweet that said, we want to encourage men to express their masculinity in non-traditionally masculine ways by being kind and sympathetic and emotional and stuff like that. And it's like,
and breastfeed.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, why don't you just like feed vegetables to the cat then? Because like you're forcing it to be something that it's not. And that is not going to help it. It's only going to repress them and cause that masculine energy to come out in unhealthy ways. There's plenty innumerable, infinite examples of positive masculine energy. And we are so lucky for it because it's why we're here today.
Eccentrik Cat, you are the guy with the quotes. So I ask you for a quote. What's the quote about hard times make hard men make good times? What's the correct quote?
I know that one.
Hard times make good men. Sorry, Elizabeth, you go.
Hard times make strong men.
Yeah.
Strong men make good times. And then it goes
Good
on,
times make weak men, and weak men make
hard
and
times.
hard times
Yeah.
make strong men.
Yes.
We are in good times. We have been in good times for a very long time. So we created weak men, and weak men are very dangerous. Even Jordan Peterson says there is nothing noble about being weak. Like weakness and being compassionate is not the same, or vulnerability and weakness are not the same thing. You can be vulnerable as a man, but you shouldn't be weak. Weakness is not a good trait, not long term. Sorry, we're completely cutting you out of the conversation, Addy.
I'm listening to what you're saying. I believe in speaking and also listening. And I think that you challenging me on that point was great. I think that what you said was 100% valid, that we do have a choice, and we don't have a choice. We don't have a choice when we don't have the knowledge. We don't think we have an option to learn more. And what you said about the issue of it being across races, it's right. It's what I was going to address. But you were quick off the mark there, Philip. But I think that what we need conditioning wise isn't hip hop music, though it's enjoyable. If you have like red pill knowledge, if you have more of an understanding of what's actually happening in this day and age. But what we need to teach our children, our youth, or even adults, especially adults, is that there is another way of thinking that is beyond television, that is beyond social media, that is beyond the radio, beyond music, beyond movies. But when you think that is your only option, then you're going to act on that. That is going to be your role models, especially ethnic minorities. They think that what is being said in the BLM is the only voice they have. They think that what's being said in rap music is the only voice they have, or the only ideology they have. There's the red pill, there's the black manosphere. There's so much more to take in, but because these movements are so niche and so demonized, that most people are conditioned to believe in something that's not even true. I don't think that BLM is a movement that helps ethnic minorities. I believe in the sentiment that their lives matter, everyone's lives matters, but I don't think the movement in itself is productive in any way towards all people, towards anyone. I don't want to be separate from people that are lighter skin or darker skin than me. I have friends of all cultures and races, and I don't want to separate myself or take sides. I want to celebrate being diverse. I want to be able to discuss things that we might not be clear on, and we can joke about and not get offended over and learn from each other. I think that, and it crosses over with feminism. I think the whole being offended by everything is insane, and also with the whole thing with they talk about Karens just being conservative or right wing. I think Karens are more left wing. I think
Absolutely.
they're more leftist. I think feminists are the ultimate Karens. The reason why I was framed or involved in the thing I was involved in was because of a Karen that I went to school, I went to college with, and she set me up in a situation by calling the BBC on me, this, that, and the next thing. This is a person that I wasn't even aware of. And again, it goes back to that whole naivety of feminism. And I think most of the people that were involved in my case were of that nature, if you want to label them Karens. There were people that came forward saying that I had done something to them that I'd never met before. There was a lady that said there was a false accusation that I had talked to her on fireworks night in a display, whereas there was a video of me somewhere else on that same night. I'd never even met this person before till they turned up to court. The charge was thrown out straight away before the judge was influenced by the media. And there was other things where people would give me their numbers and their Snapchats. And then after the hype of the BBC video, it turned into, yeah, he's sinister, he's a bad guy. And then they came and changed their story about, he shook my hand, so that was an assault. Or that was one of the charges. He shook my hand, and they tried to frame it as some sort of assault. There was a video by the guys that the people that fine you for throwing litter or a cigarette butt. They had a video of me talking to two females. The females were doing the talking. I was just standing with them with my mouth shut, just listening, and that was a charge on the sheet. There was a charge of me walking with a female, just talking. She was laughing, and we were walking together. That was a charge. A lot of charges were thrown out, but there were a lot of false accusations. There were a lot of people came forward to say that he spoke to me. I'd never met them before, and it shows the danger of what's going on right now.
Can I say something real quick about your assessment that the Karens are more on the left, because that feeds into that. In the past, purity came from the right, from the religious organizations. It was all about purity, not to talking to women before you were married and stuff like that. And obviously you have the same in Muslim culture and stuff like that. But now it's actually coming from the left. First, they destroyed all morals and all social systems that controlled human interaction. They had the sexual liberation, so everybody can do everything. And then they realized that women feel quite uncomfortable with that. So now they bring the government in and control everything, but nobody knows the rules.
There's a great John Stuart Mill quote where he says in On Liberty that morality should be the business of the priest, not the government.
Yeah.
How long before feminists start wearing clothing that covers up their whole body, and their face, all the way up to their eyes, and it covers their hair, and it's called the anti-rape kit, and it's very, very progressive. I feel as if maybe if we're lucky, by the turn of the next century, we might have made it to the Dark Ages. I want to point out that there's a great episode of The Simpsons where Homer is falsely accused of sexual misconduct, and there's he's watching television, and it cuts to a kind of women's chat show, and a woman is the presenter is holding a microphone to a woman in the audience, and she's saying, "I've never met Homer Simpson, but I feel so scared," and she bursts into tears, and the presenter said, "That's okay, your tears say more than real evidence ever could."
Yeah.
That sounds like my trial. That sounds like what happened to my trial.
It's a fantastic episode. It's in the 6th season. People should absolutely watch it.
I've seen it.
There's another fabulous quote from it, which is there's like a dramatization of Homer's crime. And he, in the dramatization, he's this monstrous drunk who's like speeding down a motorway, running over orphans and things like that. And the woman in the car with him says she's going to report him, and he'll get arrested. And he says, "A man arrested when the president is male? Not likely." I just think it's a fabulous summation of exactly where we are. It's from the 90s, but this is where we are now.
I was about to say that would not be allowed to be produced today unless a really edgy show that intentionally wants to trigger the left.
No, wow. Absolutely. It's we are regressing in terms of what we're prepared to accept in the name of free speech. But now, I do want to ask Addy, you are very lucky. I'm sure a lot of people listening to the show would admit, if you have found a woman that you love, that you in this culture are comfortable and feel secure being around. And what I would like to ask is, with all the knowledge that you have gained through what you have endured, how would you advise men go about trying to find women now?
I think that
Listening.
I think that with what's going on right now and with what I was involved in, I was talking to a high volume of women, and there was women that as soon as I seen a red flag in, like, well, feminist or rude, or the perspective was a little bit weird, I backed out. But there is so many women that you have to go through in order for you to meet someone that is that meets your criteria in the way of they have common sense and they are feminine. But I don't think that is a recommendation I could make in a Western country. I think that it is a lot of effort. It is a lot of potential turmoil that you could go through. What I would recommend is that you go somewhere where it is less insane as a society. Like, you go to a country where there are females, that we talked about it previously, Eastern Europe, North Africa, maybe South America, that there are women that you can speak to and that have a common sense perspective. They're feminine, they're not feminists, and you can meet them without the hassle that and I call it hassle now because of what happened to me. There's many guys that have done what I do, and they wouldn't label it that because they weren't involved in what I was involved in. But for the regular guy that's not a dating coach or whatever, why put yourself through that? Why put yourself through 90% of a negative situation, whether that be in a dating scenario or a false accusation? Go to somewhere where most women, in a societal sense, have a type of conditioning or thinking that is more common sense and more feminine. Go and speak to them. Now, it'd be great if we could meet women that were like my partner, or Elizabeth, or Janice Flamingo, but it's more difficult to meet people that have a open mind and that are intelligent and that are feminine at the same time. Why make it easier for yourself to go and do that? Because it's just safer. I would not recommend anyone, and that's, again, Eccentrik Cat is going back to that whole dating coach thing. I think that they are being naive when they're trying to tell people that, yeah, you should just do this and go and approach in London or wherever in the UK. I don't think you should. I think that you should be smart now. I think you should be smart because things are really up in the air. There's no, like you said, there are no real clear-cut rules. Everything's just social justice, and it used to be that this is the law and this is social justice. You can scream for what you want, but this is the law. Now there's a grey area, and that's what I experienced. I was in a grey area. Thankfully, I went to the highest court in the country, and they said, no, this is the law. But why run the risk of getting yourself in trouble when you could just go somewhere? Can
I ask where your wife is from, or sorry, your girlfriend?
She's from Scotland.
Oh, so you found the last
one good woman.
The unicorn. In Scotland it's Nessie.
Well, I say the unicorn. The unicorn is the national animal of Scotland. So
that is very true.
Do you know what? I have learned something here. I did not know that. However, I'm pretty sure there's more than that. Look,
if you take away anything from this, please take that away.
Yeah, well, yeah. I've got to say that no one that I slept with, that I had any type of relations with, came forward and said anything negative about me. They never accused me of anything. They never said anything that I'd done them a disservice or that I'd done anything illegal. So I've got to say that. I've got to give them credit. And there's
that sounds like you had happy customers.
Well, I'm not trying to promote that type of thinking. All I'm saying is that I chose the right females to be around because fundamentally I had that was what I was teaching. What we were teaching was not just about looks. It's not just what pleases you aesthetically. It's more about what is compatible with you as a man. Once you've mastered your masculinity and you know what you want in yourself and in women, then you will choose wisely. And that's what we were teaching. It was just misconstrued. And I think that was the reason why a lot of the females that I slept with never came forward and said he done this or he done that. And I think there's more women in Scotland that are of that way of thinking, but people are afraid. People want to fit in. People want to be part of the wave, part of the popular group. So they just hide what they think. But I still think that I would recommend guys don't put themselves in danger and go elsewhere and experience a much easier way of meeting like-minded women.
What would you say, Liz? Should we give up on Western women?
No, I don't think that anything is a lost cause. I think that what you should do is just concentrate on yourself. I think there are many people that are, many females that are, they think the right way. They're just influenced by what's popular. But you have to be in the right spaces to meet the right woman. And don't give up on anyone. It's a matter of just be careful of who you talk to. As soon as you get a sense that this person is that way inclined, then just don't pursue it.
Well, Addy, they said that you said about British women that they are, what was the exact quote?
The exact quote in the press was, there are no quality women in Scotland.
Okay, so let's make clear. You didn't say that, but I'm gonna say it. There are no quality women in the UK. Obviously, that's not true. There might be, yeah, exactly. It's not true. Yeah. It's not true. There are some, but I'm not afraid to say that I'm shocked at the quality of women in the UK, and I will say why. I think that women in the UK overall, this is a generalization, are very entitled. They seem to think that they don't really have to work on their personality or on themselves to actually be attractive. I think that the media didn't help them to actually show their natural beauty. So they all put up so much makeup on their face that you can't really see them from a very early age on, because they're insecure instead of just being the true feminine self that they could be, and they could be beautiful. But there are some like, you see them as little girls and you're like, oh my God, you're like, this is a beautiful little girl. And then they grow up and at one point they become like they're not real people anymore. They cover themselves up. So that's the second point. Way too much makeup. Not talking about beautiful 50s inspired makeup with, not saying that. I'm saying about like covering your whole face with everything. So that's an issue. And women in the UK, I think, are very aggressive. As a German man, I'm shocked how sexually aggressive British women are, especially on the weekend, and I find that incredibly unattractive. I find it, yes, I do find it threatening. I have no problem in saying that. But if a woman is sexually aggressive towards me, for me, she's not partner material. It's not what, as a man, I'm looking for. So all my girlfriends were from the Czech Republic. So what you were saying, Addy, works for me. But I feel sad for the status quo of dating in the UK. I think both men and women should really learn how to respect each other and themselves and be best quality partner for the other sex.
Yeah, and it comes down to this whole victim mentality thing as well. It's promoted that femininity is negative, that you have to compete with men, that you have to be masculine almost. And femininity is beautiful. It's a great thing. Having children is great. Having a woman that is comfortable in her femininity, that loves being a female, that doesn't have to be a man. Women cannot compete with men, and men cannot compete with women.
Yeah.
I cannot be a woman. I will be a terrible woman. I am a man. A woman would be a terrible man. She is a woman. So this is where it goes wrong. There is no oppression in the West. We have to celebrate the freedom we have. If there was oppression, feminism would not have the ability to cause the carnage it causes. It wouldn't have the voice it has if there was actual oppression. There is no actual oppression. We have to learn to coexist and have a more understanding, and again, I'll use one of their words, one of the leftist words, inclusive way of dealing with each other. And that is respecting a man being a man. That is recognizing that a man is a man and a female is a female, and that equality in opportunity, equality in pay, all that. I'm for that. I have a daughter. I want her to have all the rights she can have. I don't want to take that away from her. I don't want to take that away from my mother or my partner. But I still don't want to be demonized for just having masculine traits, for being a man, for wanting to do things that a man does, to think the way a man thinks. And I think that the West could learn a lot from other nations. I think that we demonize Russia quite a lot, and I'm not just saying that they have no faults whatsoever, but I'm saying that they have a lot of things right, and it is somewhere that I would consider living. I know you're from Germany, Philip. I don't know how it is over there, but I do get a sense that it is quite similar to Britain. I'm not sure.
I would say that women in Germany are more feminine and more natural. So I was happier in Germany with the women than I am here.
Okay.
You know, every week all you do is bitch about coming to this country.
That is very true. That is very true. I do apologize, and I think at one point I really have to move away, especially while Nicola Sturgeon is still the stinking head of this country.
Nicola Sturgeon is definitely someone that I think that should not be leading this country. Honestly, that is a personal opinion. She chimed in on what was happening with myself. I do not think that she has the capacity to lead without bias. And
Absolutely.
Nothing to do with her gender. I just think that she is not someone that is someone that should be leading this country. Scotland is a great nation.
How did she chime into your case, if I may ask?
Well, basically, when the BBC social video came out in January 2019, there was a big uproar. There was a MSP called Bob Doris, and he brought up in Parliament. He said that as a white man, I shouldn't be talking about anything because it's not. He basically played down being a white man. He played down being white and played down being man. Being white is not a shameful thing. You don't choose the color of your skin. Being white, you should be proud of being white. There's no shame in that. There's no shame in being a man. And then he said, with this PUA or dating coach stuff going on, and she said she's seen the BBC video, it was utterly disgusting or sickening. I think that was her words. And now it's ironic that the media are actually giving her a hard time with other stuff going on about Alex Salmond, who I think people should respect that he was acquitted, respect that he got the result that he got, and the media still try to drag him into some nonsense. And now it's ironic that the media are turning on her regarding that. I think that she should have been responsible and just told Bob Doris, listen, you need to just not mention this. It's not worthy of being mentioned in a nation's parliamentary discussion. It's not a worthy topic. Guy talks to female to date female and request phone number is not a time of the century. It is how my parents met. It's how my grandparents met. It's how people meet. I guess it's more Instagram and Twitter now, but it's still how people meet. So I think that it was irresponsible of her to even have an opinion. She should have been neutral as a leader should have been.
But Nicola Sturgeon said herself that she puts women's issues at the center of Scottish politics. So that's what she said. It's very clear. She is not the first minister for all people. She is the first minister for women.
Well, no, I do resent that slightly, because I don't know what the exact figures are in Scotland, but in 2016, the Fawcett Society found that only 11% of British women identified as feminist. And I think Nicola Sturgeon is, the first minister for feminist women.
Yeah.
I think most women, we're talking about our, mothers and grandmothers, who are all significantly based. I think it kind of started to degenerate the quality of women.
Thank you for pointing that out.
What about the points that are always raised by MGTOWs, who say that even though only a small percentage of women fight for feminism, all women benefit from feminism, and most women don't fight against it. So they're they're passively engaging in it.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's because they don't know. When I talk to, I was really scared to talk to my female friends, like my mum friends from school and stuff like that, about what I knew and believed. But as I've kind of started opening up, not one of them they've been surprised, because these are ideas they've never heard before, but they don't think I'm a monster, and they think that actually I might have a point. And the thing is, we've got to accept the fact that, the education system, the media, all the celebrities, the charities, the non-governmental organizations are all like hammering home these feminist messages. And so I don't think badly of women for believing them. In fact, if I talk to MRAs regularly, and they'll say things like, why don't feminists ever talk about, getting girls into schools and stuff like that? Well, schooling hasn't been a girls' issue for years. The split of unschooled children is like equally boys and girls. But even MRAs hear these messages so much that sometimes, one slips past the net and they just assume it's true.
Yeah, I think it's more about what's popular opinion, and people don't want to go against the grain and be demonized, or not being in the in-group, or risk not being accepted as thinking the right way. And that's where the thought policing gets dangerous, when you can't have an opinion that is authentic, that is, again, coming from a perspective of common sense, that you are communicating in a way where you're being true to what is the basic reality on the basis of biology, psychology, and even just day-to-day human interaction. And I don't think the majority of women in the UK are feminists, but I do think that there is obviously an influence, and it's unconscious as well, because if you're being told that this is the right way to think by so many sources, and the momentum of these sources is crazy. The media has so much momentum, it's unreal. They could blast a message to you within hours in so many ways. The BBC is one of the most dangerous media outlets out there. Yeah, they can brainwash a nation, and that was the case for myself with the BBC. If that is a driving force behind any type of defamation or demonization of anything, let alone dating coaches, then you're in for a bumpy ride. And I think that the majority of people have this. You see what happens with Donald Trump. He is demonized to the core, and no one is that evil. No one is that bad. I think that out of everyone, and I don't mean to go into American politics here, I'm just saying out of everyone in that that bowl of election candidates, I would say he's probably the best one. But the way they put it forward, he is the Antichrist almost. And is that objective reporting? It's not.
Actually, something really upset me, because I support Donald Trump. I think he's the most pro-male POTUS I never thought I'd see. and he stands up for justice, you know, which is really important. But there was, when you remember when he came over to visit the UK, I was getting the kids ready for school, and they had BBC Kids TV on, and Newsround was on, and Newsround kind of opened up a segment by saying, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, is visiting the UK today, and lots of people are unhappy. And then they proceeded to interview all of these like radical activists and stuff who were unhappy. And I'm sitting there going like, where are all the people who are quite happy or, you know, not bothered? You know what I mean? Like, they didn't even touch the idea that there might be people who like Donald Trump.
Yep. And I can't blame people for hating Trump. I can't blame people for example, hating Addy, because they only know what they have been fed by the media. It was the same when Vice magazine wrote an article about me and said that I don't care about women and that I view women as walking wombs. Something that my girlfriend found very funny. I received like 400 hateful comments about that, and I couldn't blame a single one of these women that wrote these hateful comments towards me, because they only knew what was portrayed to them, which had nothing to do with reality. So I can only blame the reporter, not the people that take the bait. It's very easy to take the bait. I watched 2 videos about Addy today. One was from the BBC, and then one that was narrated by a woman. Maybe it's your girlfriend, I don't know. But one was incredibly negative and one was incredibly positive. And it was as if the 2 segments were done about 2 completely different human beings.
Yeah, well, that's the narrative that they push. I mean, even though that I have been acquitted of all charges, I've been vindicated, the newspapers still, I had people coming up to me that I knew, that I'm friends with, that are neutral. They're not part of the men's movement or feminists, but they said that, yeah, it seems like that you got off with a technicality, that there was a judicial mishap and that's how you got off. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they told me that, yeah, the judge made this is how some of the media outlets reported it. It was like, it was the judge cross-examined you and there was a miscarriage of justice. That was one part of it. If that was the only part of it, there would have been a retrial. There would have been a retrial. You've been tried on the charges again. However, there was a fundamental part missing from that. And this is a document that you can find online. If you look right now, it's going to be online forever. It's in the Scottish law books. The fundamental reason that all charges were dropped was there was no case to answer, no crime to answer to. And that is the reason why there's no retrial, because the High Court judges seen it for what it was, and they decided there was no crime to answer to, as well as a judicial error. Yep. So it just goes to show how they report it, Philip. It's there's always a narrative with the media. It's about selling stories, and it's also about, like we said before, pushing this left wing equality, feminism, social justice, BLM, racism, this madness, this separatist madness. So I think that there's always going to be 2 different stories. There's many things online that talk negatively about it, because, like I said, the media have that momentum, that power, their legacy companies. But there's also niche underground men's rights movements that are giving you a different story. So if you do look my name up, try and look on the 4th Google story or the 2nd page on Google. You might find the truth.
Could you share where people can actually find you and where people can get in contact with you or just learn more about you?
Well, right now, I'll be honest, since everything happened, I've not really got a direct contact if you look up Addy game, you might find a site, addygame.com, and you could get in touch via that, and that's probably the most truthful way. That is probably the most truthful account of what happened. It's not a site that I am in charge of, but it's people from the manosphere that are in the men's rights movement that have put it up. There'll be articles linked, red pill articles that are linked to myself. There will be in time, Eccentrik Cat, more things that develop and come to be as I find my feet from the transition I've made from being a dating coach to a men's rights activist. Now I want to help men, and I want to help the men that are falsely accused, that are going through turmoil in family court. But when I say I want to help men, I don't include all men. Male feminists, social justice warriors. I wish I could help them. I really, really do. But you've got to want the help. You've got to be, I guess, burned by this whole movement that's happening right now to want to help. So I can't include everyone. And also, I want to help women as well. The one thing that is missed out in this whole scenario is that there is women attached to every man that is falsely accused, to every man who has his kids taken from him. There's grandparents involved, there's partners, there's mothers, there's sisters, there's daughters. Like, there are women that hurt from a man being falsely accused, his reputation damaged, his social standing damaged, being put in jail, his kids being taken off him. What if the kids are female? I mean, you're hurting so many women. You're supposed to be representing women's rights. What about those women that you hurt? What about those poor women that have no voice, that have to or just put up with this ordeal of that is real oppression. That is real hurt and pain.
Can I ask, Addy? Can I ask what was your sentence and how long did you serve?
Well, I was sentenced to 2 years in prison, and I was put on the sex offenders register for 10 years. So I was on remand for 9 months, and I went through my trial. I was found guilty, wrongfully convicted in September 2019. In October 2019, I was sentenced to 2 years and the register for 10 years. Then I got out on January 14th, 2019, and I just kept it low key. I was on all sorts of restrictions and license conditions, and I have never committed a sexual offence in my life. And the stigma and the shame and having to explain yourself, and just that mental pressure and almost hurt from being stereotyped and typecasted and put in a box and humiliated was horrible, and being vindicated was the best feeling ever. My girlfriend, my mother, my daughter, who's a child, had to face this ordeal. It's not just me, it's them as well. And being vindicated of that is something that is honestly, it's a feeling that I cannot describe. I still feel like, you know, that feeling you get when you think, as a child, you think it's going to be Christmas, it's Christmas Eve and it's Christmas the next day. That's how I still feel like that every day when I wake up. And
how did you find prison?
Prison in Scotland is easy. It's not a bad place. We live in a very advanced society. Scotland is. I grew up in, lack of a better term, the streets and schemes, if you like. I had friends that were guys from like that type of background. It's easy. It's like being in college, except there's no females, or being in high school with no females. It's easy. You get television, you get all the facilities, you get visits. The prison guards aren't that bad. You just have to know how to communicate. It's not like being in jail in Malaysia or something.
Could I make a suggestion? I would like to have you on the show again at one point in the near future, and I would like to hear from you a little bit more about your experience in prison, and maybe we can talk about more about cultural background and stuff like that. I wouldn't mind if we could wrap it up now, if that's okay for everybody. How do you guys feel about that?
Absolutely.
I've got another call in 20 minutes.
Yeah, and I only agreed to an hour.
I know,
Exactly.
I know.
An hour and 35 minutes.
Sorry.
I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. I've really enjoyed it, and I thank you all for giving me this platform to tell the truth.
And I also have to really thank you, because I always loved the Scottish accent. Recently, it really started to get on my nerves, because
Is that a coincidence?
because I listen to Nicola Sturgeon too often, and then this horrible advertisement, remember facts, about the COVID stuff, and you have one of the best Scottish accents that I've heard in a very long time, coming from a Pakistani. That's great.
Do you know, I think you're probably the only person that likes a Scottish accent. But yeah, I think that my Scottish accent is second to Eccentrik Hat's. He has
Well,
a very
thank
distinguished
you. I'm
accent.
glad somebody appreciates it. It's like yours is the best I've heard in a long time. I'm so in love with your accent. Thank you, Philip. I was feeling good about myself today.
But can I jump in and thank everyone? Thank you so much, Addy, for coming on. It's been just a really good conversation. It's been even better than I was expecting. And thank you to Philip and Hat as well for contributing. It's been thoroughly engaging.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I just want to say one last thing. I just want to give a little shout out to the guys that showed some support. Nick Krauser, Affy Kingdom, EO, RSD Tyler, David Kay, and Elizabeth and Mike Buchanan. Thank you so much, because you didn't have to, and you believed when everyone was against us and against me that there was an injustice in it, and I appreciate that because it takes a lot of character and bravery to do so. And again, thank you, Eccentrik Cat and Philip, also for giving me the platform to tell my side. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you again next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.
That was my line.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Well, you didn't
Bye,
say
everybody.
Snooze, you lose. Bye.